You've landed in the Confidence Zone with Susan Axelrod, the Confidence Coach. This is a place for topics of information and inspiration, a place to support you to find your confidence, get bold, and get going. Activation is needed today at all levels. Don't wait for someone else to lead. Lead now where you are with what you have. Your energy and enthusiasm matters. Believe it or not, it impacts all of us. Find your confidence, get bold, and get going. Hello, friends. Susan here live in the Confidence Zone. Something funny just happened to me, and I wanted to come here and share it with you and see what we can learn from it. I was just interviewed on a book show podcast by someone who wasn't my boss. She was my boss's boss 35 years ago. So when I was 22 years old, I was in a grad program at George Washington University in international affairs, and I did not have an aptitude for language. And also it was hard. And now I know the language, I just wasn't aligned with it. I was in resistance all the time. So I went to one of my professors at the time and told him my sob story. And anyway, he ended up getting me my first job. And I was 22. I was in Washington, D.C., and the job was as an assistant on a fundraising campaign not for a nonprofit. And I happened to work at that time for some great people. He was on the board of that organization, and I loved it immediately. The lesson there is be a good working colleague, be a good boss, be a good upline, be a good supervisor, make a nice team culture such that you can inform the entire trajectory of someone else's life, because it is true that is what happened. If that first job had been a miserable experience for me, it occurs to me now, even as I'm saying this, that I may never have become a fundraising executive. I was in that job for a few years. And then when I decided to move to be with the person who was then my boyfriend, who became my husband, the only thing I was looking for at that time was a job in fundraising. While he was getting his master's degree, I got a job in fundraising for another great organization with amazing people, an amazing board, and someone who was an important person who was on the board who basically appointed himself as my personal mentor. I remember his name to this day, and I remember him so well. He's gone now, but he really informed my experience and supported me and became a cheerleader. By that time, I was 24 years old. I stayed in that job. And then again, I got married and then moved again for my husband to get his PhD. And by then, I definitely was only looking in the field of fundraising. I moved upstate where we ended up, and that's where I had my third job. And that was a job at a university where they took a little bit of a risk with me because they put me into a great position. And I think the person told me, I can't teach you personality things. I can teach you the business things, but you have the personality. And that boss was Mary Lazule, and she was my boss for a few years. And her boss was Karen Osborne, who is the person who just interviewed me for her book show. And I know exactly when that was because I had my first daughter, Rebecca, when I was in that job. She's 36 years old today. So that's how long ago it was that I knew this person who just interviewed me, and she knew me. I was young. I was a young professional at that time. And she was my upline and everybody in that shop. It was a great experience for me. I was there for 4.5 years. And then I moved into a different arena of fundraising out of higher education into community-based fundraising. All of these things, as I'm sitting here sharing them with you, I'm reflecting on the experience that I had as a young professional. Even Karen's boss, the vice president, Bill McGoldrick, was my upline. And I remember I boldly asked him one time if I could do a presentation with him. He was speaking somewhere, and I said, I want to grow as a speaker. Could I do it with you? And he said, yes. And that was the beginning of my speaking career, because I don't know how old he was then. I don't know how old he is now, but at that time, he was a vice president level person who maybe saw me and just said yes to support me. Wow, even as I'm having this conversation with you, I'm like, this is amazing. And it's 100% true. These people really inspired me and instilled in me a love of my profession, which I was in for 35 years. I still do the work, but I'm not fully in it as a professional now. And working with Bill, I remember it was a big place and I barely did anything, but I was standing up there with him and he would ask me a question every now and then. And that's how I became a speaker. I wasn't paid at that time, but eventually I did get paid as a professional speaker in the industry. And that's how that started, because I simply asked him if I could do that with him. And so there's a lot of lessons here already. This is amazing. But there's another important lesson that I really want to share with you, and that is this. 35 years later, I'm an author, and Karen is an author. She writes nonfiction. She writes fiction novels, and I write nonfiction self-help. But we both have podcasts, book show podcasts. And so we found each other somehow on LinkedIn, I guess. And 35 years later, what if I had been a brat? What if I had been a bad employee? What if I had been a slacker? What if I had been a gossip? What if I had been like a mean girl employee? What if I had created problems or drama or something in the workplace? All these decades later, I would not have had an opportunity to be on her podcast, because she would have been like, no way am I going to interview her, right? And likewise, vice versa. What if she had been a terrible boss? What if she had created a toxic work environment, and so on and so forth? All these decades later, I would have said, I don't want to be interviewed by her, and I don't want to interview her, right? So really, this is very interesting. And I think it's very intended for you to be hearing me or watching me, and me to be synthesizing and realizing, wow, 35 years later, someone I worked with at that time helped me with something today. She interviewed me on her podcast, and likewise, I'll be interviewing her on mine. So we helped each other. And that was in part because of how we showed up then, who we were then. So I want to ask you, how are you showing up today? Are you the young person? Are you the older person? Are you the worker? Are you the boss? How are you showing up today? Because let me tell you, 35 years might seem like a long time to you, but as Karen and I were just saying, it's like, wow, 35 years have passed since we've basically seen each other. And yet here we are today having a beautiful experience together. And so who you are today, how you show up today, what you do, what you say, what you put out, your impact space, your soul survival and soul impact, it's important. It really is, because you have no idea 12 months from now, 12 days from now, even a decade from now, what it is that's going to be coming back to you. And this was, no lie, 35 years later. And so who were you then? And who are you today? And who will you be in 35 years? I mean, my gosh, I don't know if I'll be alive in 35 years from now, but I could be. And if you're watching this, you may say, oh, I remember that one conversation by, what was her name? Susan Axelrod. She said this, and it hit me just so. And that's one of the reasons that I come here and speak. It's why I speak long now. I don't do short reels. Social media cuts my work into reels. I don't do it. That's some automatic thing that it does. It has nothing to do with me. But I come here, I sit, and I think of you, and I think about what I want to say. I ask myself first, is this wisdom worth sharing. And in my podcast interview just now, it'll come out. I don't know when it's going to come out in the future, but in my interview, I said to her, she said, how did you come up with this idea of my latest book called Your Mind is Yours? And I said, from other things that I listened to on cassette tapes in those days, or that I read. This book in particular came about from my life experience, my trajectory, and that led to deep inner work and inner healing to help make me who I am today. And it stemmed from someone else, like 100 or more than 100 years ago, doing the work and writing the book. And the book eventually made it to audio. And that's how I heard it. And so if you're asking yourself questions about, what you can do, what's your purpose, what's something meaningful, is there any kind of impact that you can make, legacy that you can leave? I invite and encourage you to understand that other people likely do need to hear from you. I'm not saying millions. I'm not an influencer. I don't have millions, I don't know what my following is. I don't track following, but I have found that what Seth Godin says is true. It's basically the least viable audience for me. And so if you can come down out of social media imposition land and say, yeah, I'm going to get confident, have clarity, and consciously commit to sharing lessons that I've learned, or sharing my art or music, or, whatever your soul gifts are, maybe for you, or even just being a better person, thinking more clearly, cleaning up your life and cleaning up your thinking, and, being one of the people to lead today, which starts with self-leadership, which I learned from Dr. Richard Schwartz, which I was introduced to by my sister Laura, and also Gabor Mate, who I learned a lot from in listening to his books and the output that he has offered, and so on and so forth. And I'm here to invite you to confidently step into that which is intended for you, and also show up today in such a way that 35 years from now, you get an opportunity from someone you knew then. It's so funny because both of us are different, of course, today. Both of us are not in the industry that we were in then. And both of us revealed deeply traumatic things or difficult emotional things that happened on that podcast conversation as a result of being type A hardcore workers in that industry of fundraising and philanthropy. And, but yet here we are today. I mean, gosh, I have a tool called Go There, Look Back. And, but when I was 30 at that time, no, I was, 28, 29, 30. Yeah, I was 30. At that time, I couldn't have imagined who I would be today, or 35 years into the future, what would be happening today. But again, starting this moment, you can feel more confident in yourself. You can just work to be more on point and just not try to be all that which is not intended for you, which other people may be imposing on you, but rather, sort of connect with your authentic inside self, allow her to rise, and then show up confidently, not arrogantly. We don't have to apologize for being confident. And that's where the impact space is. And that's what leads to legacy. And of course, my website is whatwillyourlegacybe.com. And I call my YouTube channel my legacy library for that reason. I have over 700 videos, maybe closing in on 800 now. And just from showing up like this. So, wow. important stuff. I want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being in my space. Thank you for watching me. Thank you for showing up. And really, we really need you to get well, get healthy, get responsible, get soul connected, get going, because our children who were children during COVID, now they're young people, they're young professionals, they're struggling, and they really need us to be on point. So I invite you to get there more quickly. And if I can help you with that, contact me, because I am the confidence coach, and I can support you as a coach. All right, my friends, rising up, bringing it in, breathing. On with the day. Take care.